Is it true that the New Orleans Saints could actually turn to Derek Carr as their starting quarterback here in week 3? Sure. But should they? We got all that and a little bit of lagniappe for you on today's episode of Locked On Saints.
You are Locked On Saints, your daily New Orleans Saints podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is good, Who Dat Nation and Who Dat family? Welcome into another live episode of Locked On Saints, your daily podcast covering your favorite team, the New Orleans Saints, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks so much, as always, for making Locked On Saints your first listen of the day, every day, to all you everydayers out there. Don't forget, of course, you can always subscribe and follow for free on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts so you never miss the latest episodes. And as always, if you want to keep the conversation going, take part in our exclusive film studies, Q&As, and much more, head over to and become a Locked On Saints insider by visiting joinsubtext.com/LockedOnSaints today to join a community I would love for you to be a part of. As always, I am your host, Ross Jackson, at Ross Jackson Nola on your favorite social media, your New Orleans Saints expert, credentialed member of the Media Saints News Network, Tuesdays in the Locked On NFL podcast, and here with you every single Monday through Friday on Locked On Saints. In today's live episode, here we are again, two-a-days, continuing on here throughout the regular season. Let me see those your team every days in the chat. If you're catching us live, if you're catching us later, appreciate you very much being here. First-time listener, long-time listener, very, very much appreciate it. Today, I'm going to give you my unpopular take of the week, which is effectively let it rip. I'll explain in just a moment. We're also going to take a look at injuries for you to keep an update or keep an eye on as we update throughout the week. But first off, could New Orleans Saints actually start Derek Carr this weekend? The answer to that question seems to be, yeah, they potentially could. What would it take for that to happen? Well, it would simply take for the pain management to be effective, right? For the pain management to be manageable, if you will, for Derek Carr. And it seems like everyone would be comfortable with him then being out on the field. Dennis Allen said that they'll monitor everything, head coach, that they'll monitor everything throughout the week. Derek Carr spoke with media today and said that, look, he'll do everything that he can to play this weekend, but he won't play if it's going to be at risk of the New Orleans Saints team being successful. And that, I think, becomes the big thing, right? Can you go out there and play, but not put the team in harm's way? Didn't mean to rhyme there, just simply did. It's the city of New Orleans. We're all a little musical here. So here's the way that I'll say it. If everything goes 100% perfectly, and the pain management goes the way that the Saints would like for it to go, and Derek Carr is not in pain when he goes out there, sure, he could play quarterback for New Orleans. But is that the right choice? Probably not, right? I mean, like, look, there's still some concerns with this offensive line. You'd probably like to see the offensive line take a step forward before you put your starting quarterback back out there. You have a guy that not only can, but has won in your system before in Jameis Winston. You've got one of the better backup quarterback situations, a guy that's been in your system for a long time, that is a former starter in the league, that is a former starter for you. That's a unique situation for a lot of teams. Not a lot of teams outside of the New York Jets have a quarterback on their roster as their backup quarterback that used to be their starting quarterback. Doesn't happen very often. Happens in some cases. Doesn't happen very often, though. It's not a thing you see for 16 out of 32 teams is what I mean. So the Saints have a unique situation where they could feel comfortable going in with their backup quarterback and still hoping to win a game against a familiar opponent. Now, unfortunately, that opponent is very familiar with your backup starting quarterback, but that's okay. It's also not as good a team as you are that you're about to go up against this weekend. You got to fix the offensive line. You got to have the offensive line ready to block a very good defensive line, but still you're pound for pound, in my opinion, better than the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So you'd feel comfortable going in with a backup quarterback that could be a starter for other teams. You're totally fine with that. So here's what I'll say. Tip your hat. I'll tip my hat to the New Orleans Saints for the gamesmanship of this. It's applaudable, right? March your injured starting quarterback out there in front of media who's comfortable with it and handled all the questions gracefully and was awesome. He was great, Derek Carr was. But march him out there and make that other team prepare for both quarterbacks. Make that other team prepare for three quarterbacks effectively, because remember what we heard from Joe Barry, the defensive coordinator of the Green Bay Packers last week, is that they already have to plan for two quarterbacks and two offenses every week because of going up against the New Orleans Saints, because of what they'll do with their starting quarterback and what they'll do with Taysom Hill when they put him out at quarterback. So now you're making the Tampa Bay Buccaneers prepare potentially for Derek Carr. You're making them prepare potentially, and I think I would say eventually, for Jameis Winston. And they've got to prepare for the offense that comes out when Taysom Hill is under center. Applaudable. Seriously, like, that's good gamesmanship. That's what you want to do. Don't rule anybody out right now. Don't rule out any possibilities right now. Make the other team prepare for every possibility in the book. Every possibility in the book. And I love that the New Orleans Saints are doing that. And maybe that's me being, optimistic or whatever, but like, that doesn't feel like optimism. That feels like, yeah, good game plan. That's what you want to do. Make it complicated for the other team. So I do applaud that. Now, here's what I will say. And I don't know if this is going to make sense, but it makes sense in my crazy little brain here. Derek Carr playing would be surprising, but Derek Carr playing would not surprise me. That's the way that I would look at it, right? Like, if Derek Carr were to go out there and not practice all week, not throw a football all week, but then go out there and play for the New Orleans Saints, I wouldn't be surprised by that. But it would be a surprising move. I don't know if that makes sense. Let me try using different words. I would not be thrown off guard by that. But a lot of people around the NFL would be. So there is something interesting in terms of gamesmanship in that way too. And the Saints have done this before. They did this with Drew Brees before. Drew Brees went an entire week without throwing a football and then went in there and threw the football in game. It's a way that the Saints could go. I just don't know if it's the most advantageous way to go. But with the offensive line being what the offensive line is right now and all these other things, we'll see how that ends up impacting stuff. But to me, yeah, make the Tampa Bay Buccaneers ask the question, who's going to be the starter? And because of that, they have to prepare for multiple pieces. All right, real quick, before we get to my... Actually, no. We're going to come back to injury swatch, and I'm going to give you my unpopular take of the week, which is effectively let it rip. Let's get to that as we continue on. Wait, hold on. Keep it a buck. It won't matter who starts behind that offensive line. That's possibly true. Malcolm Harvey here with I don't want to say a nice comment, but a true comment, right? No matter what, like, regardless of who's behind the offensive line has to make strides this week, and they have to make strides continuing going through. We'll see if they do that. But when it comes to who's starting behind them, that's not their job to answer that question. That's on the New Orleans Saints and Doug Marrone and Dennis Allen and all these others. They have to make those decisions. So one way or another, they're going to put an offensive line out there, and they're going to put a quarterback out there. And ideally, that offensive line makes life a little bit easier for that quarterback. Will that be the case? I don't know. We'll find that out on Sunday. All right, coming up next, I'm going to tell you more injuries to watch. We're going to look at the injury report as it stands from Wednesday, give you my thoughts from practice, and then we will take a look at my unpopular opinion, my unpopular take of the week, which is to let it rip. We got that coming up for you as we continue on with today's episode of Locked On Saints, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's episode, here we go. I clicked about every button that I didn't need to click when I did that. And today's episode of Locked On Saints is brought to you by our friends at eBay Motors. Our friends over at eBay Motors have teamed up with Locked On Fantasy Football host Vinny Iyer to bring you the best fantasy football advice every single week, all season long. So whether you're prepping for your daily draft or maybe you're still scouring the free agent market, whatever it might be, we're going to make sure that we're providing you with the players that are going to be the guaranteed fit for your roster. So let's see who Vinny Iyer picked out as this week's eBay's guaranteed fit fantasy pick of the week. Broncos running back Javonte Williams has gotten healthy 48 opportunities over the course of the first 3 games, but he's so far managed only 180 scrimmage yards with 0 touchdowns during the team's 0-3 start. So expect that volume to finally convert into true fantasy production as Denver will be taking on this Bears defense in Chicago in week 4. The Bears have given up plenty of opportunity as well as yardage and scoring juice to some of those backs throughout the first 3 weeks, and Williams will be the next and the latest to be able to take advantage as a ride. It's guaranteed to fit your ride the first time, every time, or your money back. Plus, at these prices, you're burning rubber, not cash. I'm going to tell you a little bit about what I just did. I went and got my oil changed, and they tried to tell me that it was going to be $48 to change out one of the filters, the cabin filter, the one that's in the back of your glove box that you can change in like 3 minutes. Bought it on eBay Motors for $9. I saved myself $40 just by heading over to eBay Motors. You can do the same. Keep your ride or die alive by heading over to ebaymotors.com. That's ebaymotors.com. eBay's guaranteed fit, available to U.S. customers only, eligible items only. Exclusions apply. All right, family, wrapping up today's episode of Locked On Saints. Let's look at the injury report, get you all caught up on everything you need to know about the major injuries for the New Orleans Saints and what to watch for. So let's take a look at this here. The New Orleans Saints injury report has a lot of DNPs. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them of note. 2 of them are rests. The 2 rests were Jimmy Graham, Ryan Ramczyk. Remember, that's kind of a Wednesday tradition for those 2 guys. Tradition's not the right word, but we'll call it what it is. Or I'm going to use the word that I can use for lack of a better phrase. But safety Jordan Howden did not participate with a finger injury. He popped up on the injury report Friday with that finger injury. Still played last weekend. We'll just kind of watch that one all throughout. Derek Carr, not a surprise. The big ones that you wanted to see were Cesar Ruiz, Paulson Adebo, as well as Foster Moreau. Those are guys that we were curious to see. Was Paulson Adebo or Foster Moreau going to be back at practice dealing with a hamstring and ankle injury, respectively, as well as Cesar Ruiz dealing with concussion protocol at the moment. And he had that concussion that he suffered during the Green Bay Packers game. So we wanted to see how far along he was in the protocol. And he could have been there and limited still as a part of the protocol because there's certain steps of the protocol and when it comes to concussion protocol to be able to come back and be eligible to play. So he hasn't really gotten past the first step yet, which would allow him to get back out at practice and do some like light aerobics and stuff like that. So he would be able to stretch, maybe do a little bit of that kind of stuff, but he wouldn't be able to do team drills, maybe even position drills, stuff like that. So that would be kind of the limited participation. Then he would move up from that into football activities and they would be able to make the decision about whether or not he plays from there. Now we have seen players in the NFL not practice all week with a concussion and in concussion protocol and still play the game. Offensive line's a little bit tougher, a lot of micro hits to the head, stuff like that. So you want to be really careful with a guy like Cesar Ruiz. If Cesar Ruiz can't go, expect Andrews Pete to be back starting at left guard and then James Hurst to be starting at right guard. That's what they did in game. I imagine that's what they'll do this time. So not only do you have a new player coming in at right guard, but you have Andrews Pete, who hasn't been a starter through the season, who hasn't gotten a lot of action, getting fresh action at left guard. Feel how you want there. That doesn't really give me a lot of confidence that the interior of the offensive line is going to improve. I see why there would be some concerns there with one player playing out of position and going to a left guard that effectively lost his starting role going into the season, whether that be because of injury, whether that be because of performance, whatever it might be. He hasn't been the starter, and then now he would go back to being the starter. So there's going to be a little bit of a kind of getting back into rhythmness of all of that. So while the New Orleans Saints offensive line already has question marks, that could be another question mark for the offensive line. If Paulson Adebo can't go again, expect the Saints to do exactly what they did last week. And that's Isaac Yiadom starting on the outside, Alontae Taylor starting in the slot, and then maybe when they're in nickel or when they're in base rather, and you don't have Alontae Taylor playing in the slot, then they would move him outside. That's what they did last week. I would expect them to do the same thing this week. Isaac Yiadom, I thought, performed well. He did have the pass interference penalty, I know, and he did give up the touchdown to Romeo Doubs on the 2 back-to-back fade routes, but there's explanations for that we went through. Locked On Saints insiders have seen that because of the film studies and things like that. But, not anything that I saw from this New Orleans Saints defense, despite its fourth quarter collapse, for lack of a better phrase. Nothing that I see in this defense that is of long-term concern. As for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Carlton Davis back at practice, limited with a toe injury. Don't know how far they're going to want to push that. Guys like Jamel Dean, Savassier Dennis, Kalijah Cansey, Derek Pitts, Vita Vea, Devin White, all DNP estimated. These were all estimated injuries for them because they held a walkthrough. We'll really dive into the Buccaneers. I just keep clicking the wrong buttons today. We'll really dive into the Buccaneers injury report tomorrow because it was an estimated injury report since they played on Monday. There's not really enough to say, okay, there's solid evidence in terms of stuff to take away from that. So I wouldn't be worried about that too much at the moment. So we'll see. We'll see exactly what it is that happens with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, but some of those key players could end up not playing. James Jarko and I went into more in depth in that in an episode that you'll see tomorrow, which is our crossover Thursday morning episode. And then we'll discuss it more in a live show where I'm hopefully pressing more of the right buttons all throughout. And then that will give us an opportunity there to see where they actually are as opposed to the estimation. So a lot of players didn't practice, estimated for them. Not too worried about it for right now. Okay. So my unpopular take of the week, and I think that this is unpopular. We'll see. I think that no matter who's under quarterback for the New Orleans Saints this week, their focus on offense should be establishing a run game and then just letting it rip. Forget all of this lose close, win close stuff. Go big and then stay home. I say that because they're going to be at home already. I think this might be unpopular. I don't know. But I don't think that there's any reason to walk into this game and say, okay, well, let's just kind of like play conservative and, Jameis Winston's coming in. Let's say Jameis Winston is a starting quarterback. Like, play conservative and don't let him take shots down the field because interceptions. Forget all that. Forget all that. If you're going to play, go out there and play, dude. Like, do it. And so for me, like, and this isn't a commentary on the New Orleans Saints. This is a commentary on people who are concerned or analysts out there that are concerned about Jameis Winston coming in and throwing the ball too much or whatever. No. Like, establish the run game and everything like that. But otherwise, just let it rip. Like, lean in on what it is that Jameis does well if he's the starting quarterback, and that's downfield. Like, just let it happen. Like, I'm all about establishing the quick passing game, get into rhythm early, use the short passing game as an extension of the run game. All for it. Completely understand that. That's part of establishing a run game, in my opinion. But this like conservatism of, don't take the shots downfield and don't be ready to uncork it and all this other stuff. Forget all that. Forget all that. Get out of my face with all that. Go out there and air it out, dude. Like, you've got Michael Thomas, you got Chris Olave, you got Rashid Shaheed, you've got these players out there that can take the top off of defenses. You've got an injured secondary that you're going up against, and you've got a safety tandem in Tampa Bay right now that's basically a pair of run support safeties. Air it out. Get out there. Let that thing go. Let it fly. Let it rip. That's what I'm all about when it comes to this New Orleans Saints team. Go out there and be high octane. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I get it. Like, that might mean that you're going to have some interceptions in this game. And I'm not even saying that about Jameis Winston. I'm not even saying that about him. I'm just saying that because the more that you throw downfield, the more the lower the percentage of throw is. Like, that's just the way that the NFL works. I understand that. I get that. But goodness gracious, just get the ball out. You know what I'm saying? Like, don't hold on to the ball. Don't wait for stuff to develop. Learn the spots to get these passes going and throw to the spots. Put it where these receivers can catch it and nobody else is going to be able to get to it. Like take those opportunities, take those shots. You don't have to take the 40-yard shots downfield every 3rd and 3. That's not what I'm saying, right? Like, there's a limit at which this makes sense, and I'm trying to operate within that limit. You understand? But don't be conservative around all of this in terms of, you know what I mean? Like, oh, well, we have to protect against the interceptions. Like, come on, dude. Like, at some point, you have to just be willing to operate the offense. And if you're not willing to operate the offense, then, like, find somebody who will. You know what I mean? Like, that's got to be a big thing for me. And so people that are coming in and kind of saying, like, well, if Jameis Winston's going to be the quarterback, then run 30 times. Like, I'm all about establishing the run game, but don't take him out of the game entirely. I don't see where the value of that really is. And look, I already see people in the chat who hate what I'm saying, and I get it. People say like Toda Glock. Your username is literally saying to Toda Glock, and you don't want to let things go. Like, come on now. Like, we gotta get past this. We gotta get past all this. And so what I'm saying is, just like, go out there and live. You know what I mean? Forget all this lose close, win close stuff. Like, go out there and let it go. You know what I'm saying? Like, if that's the idea in terms of you're wanting to make sure that you're getting out there and elevating these receivers and using the weapons that you have and everything like that, like, go out there and use the weapons then. Like, go out there and let it go. Like, it might lead to them losing the game. You know what I'm saying? Like, that could happen. I understand that. But it also could lead to them winning the game. Like, all of this hyperbolic, hypothetical stuff can go either way. All right. It can go one way or another. So for what I'm saying is, have fun. Go out there and just get it done. Just go out there and do it. You know what I mean? Establish the run game, get it all going, all that other stuff and everything like that. And look, there is a part of this about like, all right, well, if you're going to air it out, then the offensive line has to hold the blocks. I completely get that. But you can't go into a game saying, well, the offensive line's bad, so we have to play like the offensive line's bad. No, go out there and like let that offensive line prove to you that it doesn't have to be bad, that it doesn't have to struggle, right? And then adjust the game plan accordingly if you need to. I completely get that. If the offensive line is struggling, you can't buy the time for the deeper routes to develop and all that. I get it. But go back and watch some of the tape of what Matt LaFleur and the Green Bay Packers did last week. They were getting the ball out quickly and taking shots downfield. The two don't have to be exclusive from one another. You just have to be willing to do it, and you can't be afraid of it. That's my thing. And I don't think the New Orleans Saints have shown that they've been afraid of or anything like that. I'm just saying that, like, for folks that think that the New Orleans Saints should be afraid of their offensive line, and that they should be afraid of Jameis Winston throwing the ball, and that they should be afraid of taking shots downfield, you can't be that as an NFL team. You just can't. You can't be that way and expect to win, at least. You can't have both. You can't have both. So my unpopular opinion of the week is let her rip. Go out there. Let her rip. Get it done. Establish the run game. Do the things you have to do to get into rhythm first. All for all that. But when you're ready, all those snaps, that's short, intermediate, deep. All three levels of the offense. Let that thing go, man. Let that thing go. And again, like, that could be a bad opinion. But hey, whatever. We'll see what happens. We'll see which way the New Orleans Saints go with it. All right. Coming up tomorrow, it is our crossover Thursday episode. Myself and James Yarko of Locked On Bucs. I picked the Saints to win. Find out why in tomorrow's episode. For real. Like, I did not hold back on my opinions of why the New Orleans Saints are the better team when it comes to this. So I appreciate y'all very much for being here for another live episode of the show. Whether you're catching the show live or catching the show later, I appreciate y'all very, very, very much for being here. So remember, as always, we're here with you every single Monday through Friday, so I appreciate you as always making us your first listen of the day every weekday. If you want anything else, or rather, sorry, I'm all over the place right now. I really appreciate you being here. That's what I'm trying to get to. Thank you very much for making me a part of your day, part of your routine, for saying yes to me on the show. As always, if you see me, say hi. And if you need anything else around your New Orleans Saints in between these episodes, make sure you follow me on Twitter at Ross Jackson, NOLA. Hit me up, learn how to families, learn how you living. Let me know how you mom and them. And trust you, that nation. I'll holla at you.